Who in the world is Robbie Williams? I had no idea who this guy was. That was until I saw the movie Better Man. Better Man is this R-rated musical fantasy biopic film that came out last month. I think it released on Christmas. And it totally bombed at the box office. Its budget compared to what it has earned to what it probably will earn, it has got to be one of the worst failures of 2024. However, a lot of people do like it. Critics and the audience as well. If you go on Twitter, there is a huge amount of people on Twitter that are just, or X, that are just singing Better Man's praises. I finally got to watch it. I think it was last weekend or a couple days. I'm not sure, but I got to watch it. I was intrigued by the trailer alone. I mean, like a monkey, and it's these dance fantasy sequences in the movie. But the monkey, I mean, I think it's really interesting how no one in the movie was aware that he was a monkey. Like they like it just. That is kind of like something that only the audience sees and only something that he sees, right? But of course, the movie is about Robbie Williams, who I just, like I said, I have no idea. The trailer intrigued me alone because of all those things that I just mentioned. But Robbie Williams, I mean, I'm like, what the hell? Who is this guy? Turns out he's one of the most famous UK pop artists ever. I have no idea, and I think he's literally known like in every other part of the world except like the United States. Like it just, for some reason, he just never broke the United States, which is interesting and bizarre. I mean, you would think he would, with other artists like George Michael, right? And Elton John, but like, I guess not Robbie Williams. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that he came from like a sort of boy band background, and this was like the late 90s. So I don't know. Maybe that had something to do with it, but I want to talk about Better Man. I really do, because it has got to be one of my most, one of the best films I saw in 2024, and definitely one of the best films I've ever seen. It doesn't matter whether you know who Robbie Williams is. In fact, I think it's very interesting. And before I continue, I'm going to spoil the living hell out of this movie. So if you've seen the movie, welcome. If you have not seen the movie, go and watch the movie, come back and watch this video. But if you don't know who the hell Robbie Williams is, it doesn't matter. I think it's interesting how the movie begins with literally like Robbie Williams being like, this is who I am, or, who am I, or whatever. Like he starts with some dialogue that sort of kind of pokes at the fact that like, you might not even know who the hell I am, which I think is just so genius. And also at the same time, even if you know who Robbie Williams is, that type of dialogue that he has at the beginning of the movie is the thing that he would say anyway. Like it fits no matter what. The other thing that I think is worth pointing out is the director of this movie is the Greatest Showman director. This is a movie that I really enjoyed. This is the Hugh Jackman, Zendaya, Zac Efron movie. It was another musical, very bombastic, very fantastical. Or actually, no, it was more grounded, but like, I guess I was being hyperbolic there. Better Man is definitely fantastical, but Greatest Showman is just a great film. Its story is awesome. Not a huge fan of the music, but the story is great. And I guess that goes along with my first point, which is like, even if you don't like Robbie Williams, or even if you don't even know who he is, or even if you do know who he is and you don't like his music, this movie's story alone is just worth it. But yeah, Greatest Showman director, he's a fantastic just director in general, so I had to go see this movie. Now, let's talk about some positives of the film. And actually, I'm not even going to talk about negatives of the film. Actually, there might be one negative, but I'll get to it when I get to it. But positives. First thing is the visuals, right? The first thing that you're going to notice are the visuals of the movie. The main character is played by, it's Robbie Williams. He does the voice, but it is a CGI monkey. Absolutely bizarre choice, but it looks amazing, okay? The CGI animation for this monkey is incredible. The visuals of this movie are amazing. The sequences, the dance sequences, the dance numbers, It is just awesome. And at the same time, even though there's so much special effects in this film, there's so much going on, it has a very filmic feel to it. I mean, there's a lot of grain in the movie. I don't know if it's like artificial or not. I don't think I have the eye for that. But there's a lot of grain in the movie. It has this grimy nature to it, almost as if it was like an 80s film. It's weird. But it has a very grimy, like kind of grindhouse feel to it, which I think is very interesting. And it's incredibly cinematic. I mean, just, this is a movie you go, like, if you want to go see a movie, you want to go see cinema, this is one of the movies that you could do that with, for sure. The music of the film, this is something that, I mean, it's a musical, right? There are some of the best songs in Robbie Williams' catalog. Now, I have yet to listen to all of his catalog. I've recently started listening to it, but the songs that the movie does use is some of the best in his catalog. I think you're going to at least like them. You may not love all of the music, but I think I think you'll dig them to a certain extent. But really, interestingly enough, too, is that they're not direct copies of the original songs. Like, they were remade and kind of re-recorded for this movie. And it just is amazing. I think they're even better to a certain extent in this film. And they pair so well with with the dance numbers and everything. This movie's like, it truly is fantastical in the sense that it's very hallucinogenic. It feels like you're on a fucking, like you're on an acid trip, which goes in line with the story. There's so many things that just appear that are just not real, and then some things that are real mixed in with the things that are. And it is just amazing in that department. It truly does feel like, it's like watching a superhero comic book film. I mean, it's just incredible. It's all over the place, but it's psychedelic. It's I don't know. It is just absolutely incredible, and it pairs so well with the music of the film. Now, what good is a movie, right? If it looks great, if it sounds great, but what is the story good, right? This movie's story absolutely surprised me. The trailer made it seem like it showed a lot of fantastical elements. It showed a lot of the dance sequences and stuff like that, but I don't think it really showed how raw this story was going to be. Robbie Williams' character, he was a celebrity, he had a lot of drama going on in his life. It's a biopic. It kind of starts at the beginning and kind of goes, until kind of the, his older age, I guess. He's not like he's not elderly, but like, you do go through these stages in the film. It's kind of chronological in that way. And this movie is so goddamn raw. I mean, it does not shy away to the R rating at all. I mean, there's nudity in here. There is heavy, intense drug use here in this film. And the thing about the drug use and really, I would say the raunchiness of it, what's the word? Like, it's a little vile. Like, it just, Robbie Williams, like, I'm just very, look, I mean, we're no strangers to biopic films that portray their character in a bad light, right? I mean, we saw it a little bit with Walk the Line. It was a biopic that it wasn't afraid to show the flaws of Johnny Cash. A lot of that is true here with Better Man, but this one just goes the mile. I don't think I've ever seen a movie that like completely deconstructs its main, celebrity. A biopic, film. I haven't seen a biopic film that completely deconstructs the character in this way. I mean, it's like you love Robbie and you are, you're rooting for him and everything, but you're like, at the same time, he is doing so many things that are just so incredibly awful, and sometimes even unlikable, that it's bizarre. And it almost just feels like a fucking crucifixion over here of Robbie Williams. It is just so raw, unfiltered, abrasive, just violent, but not with like violence, although there is some violence in the film. Not in the way that you think of it. But it just, I don't know, it's just so, it's so out there. and it just doubles down on the deconstruction of Robbie Williams. And I think it's absolutely ballsy. And I think this is where the monkey metaphor of, completely comes into play, because the monkey is a reflection of the way that Robbie Williams sees himself. And so it makes perfect sense that he looks like a monkey. No one else is aware, sees him as a monkey, but the point is that he sees himself as a monkey and we see him as a monkey, right? And then, like, in many ways too, the monkey nature is very raw. It's very naked. You know what I mean? Like, in a way, it's like if you strip Robbie Williams from his human flesh, what would come out and what you would see as a monkey. You know what I mean? Like, that's how raw and unfiltered, the movie is. And it goes perfectly well with the grindhouse filmmaker grain of it, the really kind of just, no lube type of strategy to this film. And it deals with drugs, and it deals with sex, and, just ego, and just so much toxicity. And it's very, 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 everything synergizes very well with itself, right? The monkeyness of it, it just, to me, if I were to tackle a story about something, in a very raw, unfiltered way, I think having the main character be a monkey, I think is very accurate to that. And at some point too, Robbie Williams' character does say, I feel like I'm unevolved, like that sort of thing. So that makes a lot of sense right there, right? Now, at the same time that the story does have just a lot of tragic moments, toxic moments, I mean, just sad moments, frustrating, angry, like, this movie runs the gamut. And I also think it's very, I give a lot of kudos to it, because, it's a biopic film that's R-rated, which again is not new. Like this is a thing, but it's R-rated. It's a musical, which is like, it's so weird. Like, when I think of like other biopic films, like Walk the Line, is a musical film, but in many ways, like I just see it kind of purely as a biopic. It's weird. Whereas like this film is truly a musical, because I mean, like it's not realistic in a lot of its musical numbers. Like the characters are doing kind of superhuman things, and like these set designs and these sequences are very, again, psychedelic or, bombastic, hyperbolic. And so it's very out there, and so in many ways, the movie, if you're going to include all of those elements, I could totally see how it would have been very difficult. Like, it's very courageous for the filmmakers or the studio to have faith in the movie like this, because I could totally see them be like, well, fuck, like, not only is Robbie Williams known as like one, is an incredibly famous icon, but to include all these fantastical elements and everything, and it's a biopic, and it's a musical, like, and it's fantastical, like, we have to make it, PG-13. Like, we have to make it as accessible as possible. Not to mention that, I think that to a certain extent they did know that Robbie Williams is like not known at all in the US. And, the US is a very important market. So you would hope to God that I'm sure that there was some, I'm sure that there was some difficulty in kind of pitching the movie, or at least kind of, the process of it, like it's just, there had to be. But the movie came out like this, and it's so just unapologetic, and it's not trying to it's not cookie cutter. It's not trying to just get butts in the seats. It is just a genuine cinematic film that takes itself seriously. It's sophisticated, and it's edgy. You know what I mean? Like, it's totally edgy, and you would think that with all those elements, it totally would try to not be edgy, not have all the drug use, not be so filmic and grainy and weird and bizarre and just vile. Like, you would think it would try to shy away from all those things for the movie to work, right? For the movie to be as accessible, four-quadrant-like as possible. But no, it does not hold. It's unapologetic. It is what it is. The way the movie ends too is like fucking amazing. Like like Robbie Williams just says something like, I'm an entertainer. You may not like me. I may not, be the best at it. You may think I'm like I'm a cabaret singer, but fuck it, I'm the best cabaret singer ever, and I'm the best entertainer or some shit like that. Like he just says like, look, I may not be like a greatest of all time, and like in like, I may not be, I mean, he doesn't say this exactly, but I think what he's trying to say is like, I may not be, a fucking Beethoven or, I don't know, like an Elton John or like someone that's revered, for like sophistication or, grand, like, like I may not be like well liked, critically acclaimed or commercially acclaimed, like in the most like superficial or stereotypical way or whatever. But like, I don't care. I may be trash to you, but goddamn, I'm the best trash there ever is. It's like, it's kind of like that. He just embraces his avant-gardeness. He embraces his, kind of just underdogness, I guess, to a certain extent. He embraces the fact that he is kind of the redheaded stepchild. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to come up with these metaphors here. Like, he embraces the fact that he's an outlier, that he's an outcast to a certain extent, or, that he's a successful guy, but he has this specific niche, or he did things his way. And then he says like something like, that's who I am, fuckers. Like something like that. Like it's so vile. There's so much cussing in this movie. Like it is just so absolutely unapologetic, and it's out there. And I think it's very courageous and very brilliant. Now, with that all being said, the movie's all those things, but at the same time, it has so much heart to it. And this is where, we get to the fact that this movie really impacted me a lot. I cried at the end of the movie. It was near bawling. I mean, it was that. It wasn't just like I shed a little tear here and there. I mean, I was legitimately like crying. It depicts Robbie Williams in a very, very unfavorable light in many ways, right? It shows him at his worst. It can show him at his best, right? But it also shows him at his worst. But at the same time, I love how even when it shows him at his best, it does not shy away at showing the worst parts about him. Even in those best parts, he is a person that had a very toxic relationship with his father. And at the same time, he is a person that has always fought for his approval, for his dad's approval, for everyone else's approval. He's always felt like he wasn't enough. And he deals with that throughout all his life in this movie. And he has so much insecurity, so much anxiety, and that is depicted so well in this movie, in the way that, when he's performing and he's at his best, in the audience, there's these occasional moments of failure in his life. Like we see, he'll look at an audience member, and that audience member it'll be a reflection of him at one of the worst points of his life, like, and that audience member is not the audience member. It's Robbie, the monkey, but in the outfit and in the demeanor of a very low point in his life, or when he was humiliated as a kid. Like, you see all these things, like, and throughout his performing, he sees those things in the audience, and he becomes, anxious and sad and all of that, and disillusioned, and he goes back to thinking that he's nothing, right? So that happens in the film. He does have a relationship with his dad throughout the film, but it is a very, kind of one-sided one. It is a very hypocritical relationship. His dad just was not the best person. Now, Robbie Williams wasn't the best person either. I mean, and Robbie kind of admits that at the very end of the film in a way. Like, he says, my dad is some of the best parts about me, and he's also some of the worst. I see myself, like, in many ways, I see myself in this film a lot. I too have a very, very dysfunctional relationship with my father. I mean, I don't talk to him really at all. I grew up with him. My parents were divorced, so I had to go back and forth. And then to a certain point, I just didn't live with my dad anymore because it was so toxic. I would leave his house crying a lot of the times. He was just a very difficult person to deal with. When I was a little boy, it was easy to be with him, and he was a very fun dad to be around when I was a kid, in a way, when I was a little boy. But as I started growing up, and then he really wanted to push me to be a performer, a singer, which is also another thing that's very similar to Robbie and I. I did that a lot up until like early high school or early to mid high school. And then even to a certain extent, early college. But it just became so incredibly toxic. I don't want to say, I don't know what, I don't want to say too much. I don't want to completely shit on my dad. Because there's a lot of great things that he did, that shaped me into who I am. I guess that's like better man, right? But it became really toxic. He was very controlling. He was very egotistical. I didn't feel like I didn't feel listened. And it was tough because we were both stubborn. So in many ways, like all of his flaws, I absorbed. And so when I started growing up and becoming my own person, I wasn't a 7-8-year-old kid. I started being like him as I was growing up, and I was able to find ways to fight back against him because he was so controlling, he was so toxic, and he would gaslit, and all of that. And I started doing all those things against him, and then that would rile him up, and then it would rile me up, and then I would cry, and then I would want to leave. It's very bad. He never took responsibility to anything that he did. Really, I never felt like he said sorry. It always felt like it was my fault. I was always fighting for his approval. I was always trying to, I'm very competitive because of him as well. I'm very egotistical because of him. I'm always comparing myself with others because of him. There's so many things, negative things that I do because of him. I have a very hierarchical view of the world when I have relationships with people, that the hierarchy like way of thinking is in my head all the time. I'm like, I'm comparing, being prejudiced. Like there's so many things, dude, that like come from my dad. And at the same time, there's a lot of great things that come from my dad, which is, ego to a certain extent can be healthy. Competition to a certain extent can be healthy. Being unique and being out there and being different than everybody else can be healthy to a certain extent. He always pushed me to be those things, and I do strive to be those things. He pushed me to be very ambitious as well, and to always kind of be unsatisfied with everything. Always try to push the limit on things. Always try to give 101%, that sort of thing. But again, with all that, being there, there's also a lot of negativity and toxicity, because it's like it was never enough, right? Which is also something that's related to Robbie Williams' experience with his father. He always pushed me to be humble, and he always pushed me to have, to care about art, I guess. I mean, he was never eloquent in that. I don't think I know he loved music and he loved art and stuff like that, but like, I just never, it wasn't as eloquent or sophisticated in the way that he let me know this as I can probably express it now. But it definitely does come from that. Like, my love for art does inherently come from him wanting to show me oldies or songs that he thought were amazing, or performances that he thought were amazing, right? Like, there's so many things to who I am that are because of him and because of his, and also, I mean, my love for Michael Jackson does come from my brother, mostly. But my dad, when it comes to art and when it comes to just the appreciation of so many different things and stuff like that, like, and the desire for ambition and the desire for performing and the desire to, stand out from everyone else, that comes from my father. And then all that positivity, there is so much toxicity. That as much as the positive side of the coin existed with my dad, there was also, I couldn't have that without the other side, right? Without things just going too far to where I don't feel like I'm enough, to where I don't feel like I am special enough, to where I feel like I am not skinny enough, to the point where I feel like I'm not humble enough, to the point where I feel like I haven't gave enough, or that I didn't try too much. that I didn't try as hard as I should have. Material things, whatever material things I have, those aren't enough. I have to get more, but at the same time be incredibly cheap and not buy anything that is actually of good quality because, you're so frugal. It just... to try to be better than everybody else in a relationship, to always try to outshine them in every possible way. If you're at school and people are just getting called on and, they're giving out answers, when I raise my hand, my answer has to be the best answer. Just like so many things. I don't have a good relationship with my dad because of that. I have decided to kind of not really talk to him. And Better Man ends with Robbie Williams and his father embracing finally, and kind of accepting the things that happened, taking the best out of it, and the worst parts, putting them, I guess, under the bridge, water under the bridge, that sort of type of thing. But at the same time, like, just understanding that everything that happened, the faults, the positives, everything, like the regrets, it was meant, it just is what it is, and the life that you have now is a product of all of those things, and you wouldn't change any of it. Really, you can't, and you also wouldn't, because it made you into the man that you are today. And all of that is combined with the backdrop. All of that, is expressed in the movie, and then the backdrop to this is Frank Sinatra's "My Way," which is one of the best songs ever. That moment, seeing Robbie and his father singing that song, because that was a song that they sang when they were little. When Robbie was little, he would sing it with his dad, even though his dad really just sang it for himself and just wanted to show off. But Robbie wanted to sing it with his father. They both looked up to Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. So much. Those were the greats, according to Robbie Williams' father. Those were gods. And that's how Robbie viewed them. And he always wanted to be to their level because of that, because of his father. In the same way that I wanted to be great. But seeing at the end of the movie, after this toxic, very, very dysfunctional relationship with his father, and then at the very end of the movie, they sing together in a performance, just absolutely incredible. It put me to tears. And then the song itself, I did it my way, and it talks about all those the ups and downs of life, and then it ends with like, but I wouldn't change any of it because you know what? It's awesome. At the end of the day, it's my way. I did it my way, right? It's kind of owning your life experience. There is something so beautiful and so freeing about that, and so empowering. And then when you put it in the context with Robbie Williams and his father, and then when I put it in the context with my dad and me, I hope I get to one day metaphorically sing that song with my dad and give him a hug and get to a point where we can sing that song. It's hard because, my dad and I, he's not the type of person that I would want to sit down and have a conversation with. But maybe I don't have to, maybe I can give him a hug and sing the song and that would do. There's a line that Robbie says in the movie, and it is probably the only time where I have felt completely understood and I have seen myself in a character the most. I don't think I've ever in my life felt so exactly connected to a piece of dialogue or a character ever. I think this might be the most relatable movie I have ever seen in my life. Like, to that degree, man. Like, to where, like, I just feel like this movie was made for me, dude. But he says a line to one of his best friends, because his friend is like basically saying like, oh my God, like, I would love to like, perform or whatever, like, or do this because like, I love it, like, and then Robbie says, it doesn't matter whether you love it. What matters is that they love you doing it. And I was like, that it completely sums up everything about my personality. And it is the best, and it's also the worst, right? It's a curse and a blessing. And that also comes from my father, where everything that you do is based off of what everyone else, the reaction of someone else. Like half of the reason why I do what I do is for interaction, is for a response, because I want to be seen as someone great. That is half of the reason why I do what I do. Either whether it's performing, whether it's doing a cover, whether it's doing this video, whether it's doing any video on YouTube, whether it's any form of expression that I have, half of it is I want it to be seen and approved and loved by people, because then that means that they love me, right? And there is so much insecurity in that. There's so much ego in that. Like, it's insane, and it's so accurate to Robbie Williams' character, and it's accurate to my being. That is how I see myself. That is my struggle, is that I feel like I am never enough. I feel like I'm worthless. I feel like that without my art, without me trying to express myself, without me trying to perform, I am worthless. And so, but at the same time, I am so confident in what I do, in the same way that Robbie Williams is confident in what he's doing. Where he says, like, look, you may think I'm trash, but I'm the best goddamn trash ever. Like, he doesn't say that exactly, like I've said, but like that's sort of his attitude. He just kind of owns, what he does, and he's like, I'm here to entertain you, and I want to be the best goddamn entertainer, and you know what, I am. Like that's kind of his attitude, but at the same time, he thinks that he's not. You know what I mean? Like, and that's literally the summation of my personality. Exactly. And you know what? Maybe it's a lot of people. That's what everyone else has been dealing as well. I'm not sure. But that is definitely my conflict. But I've never heard a character say something that I relate with as much as that line right there. And really in general, when I think of this movie and what it means, oh my God, dude. Like it just, and at the same time, Robbie at the beginning of the movie, he said, I always wanted to be, I want to be famous, that's like my thing, And when I was a kid, I had that same mentality, and I still do to a certain extent. And I'm starting to accept that, I might never ever be famous, and that is what it is. It hurts. It's like one of the most hurtful things ever. And I'm trying to deal with that. But like, I think ultimately what I get out of the movie too, and why it's so empowering and why it's so relatable, I guess before I get to the empowering part, like, that desire to be famous and all the greatness that comes out of it, but at the same time, all the flaws that can come out of it, how you hurt other people around you, how you are engaging in self-destruction. Like, Robbie wanted all the greatness that came from fame, but in a weird way, he got all of it, but obviously with a price, with all the drugs and the dysfunctional relationships and hurting other people and the ego. And there's this weird fascination that I have, and I'm being completely honest with all of you, this weird fascination that I have of experiencing that too if I ever get to be famous, because that means that I've lived a full, engaging, dramatic life as a celebrity. And so it makes it more fulfilling, which is just disgusting and toxic, and it really probably might come from a person that hasn't hit rock bottom yet, right? And so it's easy for me to have this fantasy of those things. I have some weird shit going on in my head. Part of it I wish I could say fully. Maybe one day in one video I'm going to say it. But there's a lot of weird things that I have in my head. That is a form of those things that I just mentioned, or a form of it. And this movie kind of, acknowledges that, and kind of in a weird way. Like, it doesn't fully do it exactly. I mean, it has Robbie being like, I always wanted this greatness, this fame and everything. But that now that he has it, he finds that it's difficult, so that there is some of that, it isn't fully like what I'm thinking, but like, I don't know, I can't help but think so, you know what I mean? Like, because when you want fame, like in a way you do want a lot of the things that are bad, that are associated with it. it's a very toxic, very seductive type of thing, right? But now to talk about the empowering thing about it. The empowering thing about it to me really, and this is so meta, is that the movie doing shitty in the box office and the movie, just kind of fizzling, literally, is it goes perfectly well with the movie, and the movie becomes even better with knowing that the movie didn't do well, because that is the whole point of Robbie's character. Robbie's character, at the end of the day, his journey is fully embracing the ups and downs of his life and being like, I wouldn't have it any other way. And him being so confident in his life and his sacrifices and in his pains and in his positive attributes, all of those things, and his power, like that, he just embraces all of that. He enjoys it. He revels it. He relishes it, and then he just wants to perform for the world, and he does it because he loves it, but at the same time he loves that people love it, and like, even if it's just one person, two people, 100 people, whatever, he also wants to be a god. He wants to be great, and he wants to be loved by everyone, but at the same time he's okay with not being loved by anyone because he's unapologetic. It's just that contradiction, that dichotomy, it makes it so whether this movie does well or not, which it didn't, it makes the movie even better because the movie's themes affirm it, and and the fact that it doesn't do well affirms the movie. You know what I mean? But also, if it did do well, and if it was breaking all kinds of records and it got all these Oscar nominations, it would affirm the movie's themes as well. And so I just love the movie exists in this kind of, purgatory, in this in-between where it could be hell or heaven. And the movie's fantastic. It doesn't matter. The movie survives because the movie is unapologetic, because it's authentic, because it's vulnerable, because it relishes in the power of itself. And that is just so incredibly empowering and so fucking badass. Better Man is one of the best films I've ever seen. And those are my thoughts on Robbie Williams' Better Man. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Did you like the movie? Have you even seen the movie? Feel free to comment down below. Please, before you comment, or make sure you watch the whole video before you go off on me there. Yeah, would love to hear your thoughts. Would love to have great, thoughtful discussions down there. Give this video a like if you like. Dislike it if you didn't. Subscribe to the channel if you love this content, if you like this video, and also share it with your friends. Or you maybe don't have any friends, in which case that's unfortunate. If it's your birthday, happy birthday to you, you beautiful creature. But I think that's it for me. You all take care, stay safe, and until next time, I love you.